Hey, wait! Where are you coming from? Why do you look so tired? Talk to me! Ehen! Don't lie! Have you heard? This kingdom we are in, things are not as they seem, oh.
Mama Chidi, what is it again?
Our king, that man is not clean. He is hiding wealth. Do you think all the money of this land is where it should be? He is gathering it somewhere else. In fact, he has another family in another place. A young woman in another kingdom for himself. Do you know what you are saying? I don't speak what I don't know.
The first thing Mama Chidi ever collected each morning was not water, not firewood, not even cents. It was news, hot, half-cooked, and stolen from people's mouths before they even knew they were speaking. Wait. Where are you coming from? She would call out, blocking the narrow path with her wrapper tied too tightly around her waist, eyes sharp like a hawk that had spotted fresh meat. Why do you look tired like this? Who offended you? Talk to me. The poor woman, she stopped would stammer, shifting her load from one shoulder to another. Mama Chidi, nobody offended me. Oh, I just came from a hen. Don't lie. Your face is speaking. Something has happened. Mama Chidi would insist, leaning closer, lowering her voice in pretense of secrecy, yet loud enough for 3 compounds away to hear. Before the woman could finish her sentence, Mama Chidi had already gathered enough fragments to build a completely different story, one she would carry like fresh pepper to the market, ready to spice into something dangerous. Yet Mama Chidi did not stop. No, her tongue had tasted attention, and it wanted more. In the market, under the hot sun where traders shouted prices and buyers argued loudly, she stood in the center like a town crier of confusion. Have you heard? She began, drawing people closer with the promise of something explosive. This kingdom we are in, things are not as they seem. Oh. Someone laughed nervously. Mama Chidi, what is it again? She leaned in, lowering her voice, but making sure everyone could hear. Our king, that man is not clean. He is hiding wealth. Do you think all the money of this land is where it should be? No. He is gathering it somewhere else. In fact, she paused for effect, eyes widening dramatically. He has another family in another place. A young woman. He has already started building another kingdom for himself. A collective gasp spread like harmattan fire. Mama Chidi. Do you know what you are saying? Someone whispered in fear. But Mama Chidi only tossed her head proudly. I don't speak what I don't know. The market buzzed, fear and excitement mixing into a dangerous storm, and just like that, a woman's careless words began to shake the ground beneath an entire kingdom. Before we continue this hilarious tale, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our stories, like this video, and drop your thoughts in the comment section. And before we even begin properly, tell me, have you ever trusted someone with your secret, only to hear it flying around the next day? I know how painful that can be, because I have been there. How did you handle yours? Now, sit back, and let us enter the world of Mama Chidi, the woman whose mouth refused to rest. Mama Chidi was not just known in the village, she was heard before she was seen. Her mouth moved faster than the village drum during festivals, faster than the wind that carried dust through the harmattan, faster than common sense itself. If words were palm wine, Mama Chidi would have been the largest tap in the land, never dry, never tired. She was loud, dramatic, and expressive, always leaning forward as though invisible hands were dragging secrets straight out of her lips. Even when she whispered, it traveled like a shout. Her laughter, sharp and sudden, cutting through conversation like a knife through soft yam. And her so-called confidential talks. Oh, those ones could be heard from one compound to another, whether you wish to hear them or not. In contrast stood her husband, Papa Chidi, Obina, a man so gentle that even his footsteps apologized to the ground. He was calm, soft-spoken, and respected by all, but his face often carried the quiet exhaustion of a man constantly recovering from his wife's latest disgrace. Many times, he would simply shake his head slowly and mutter, "This woman will not finish me before my time." Their first son, Chidi, was his father's true reflection, quiet, disciplined, always avoiding trouble as though it carried a disease. But Emeka, the younger one, Emeka was a different story. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, his ears stretched wide for gist, and sometimes, his tongue danced too close to danger, just like his mother's. Each time, Papa Chidi would quickly correct him, his voice firm, Emeka. A man does not carry words up and down like a basket of cassava. Control your mouth. But Mama Chidi would wave it off with a laugh, let the boy breathe, Obina. Is talking now a crime? Yet, if only she knew, words are like fire, once released, they cannot be gathered again, and when they spread, they burn more than the person who lit them. Every morning, while other women swept their compounds or fetched water, Mama Chidi had her own sacred duty, collecting news. She would stand at the edge of the path like a gatekeeper of gossip, eyes alert, ears hungry. Stop there, she would call out, blocking an unsuspecting passerby. Where are you coming from? Why do you look tired like this? Who offended you? Tell me. The person, confused and slightly afraid, would try to respond, Mama Chidi, nobody offended me, I just a hen. You think I cannot see it on your face, she would interrupt, nodding knowingly as if she had already attended the meeting they were accused of having. By the time the poor person escaped her grip, Mama Chidi had already gathered enough fragments to build a story strong enough to shake the market. And the market, that was her kingdom. Her store was meant for selling pepper, crayfish, and dry fish, but truth be told, Mama Chidi sold more stories than goods. A customer would approach, Mama Chidi, how much is pepper? She would lean forward, lowering her voice, pepper is there, but have you heard about Ngozi? That girl is not as quiet as she pretends, The customer would blink, confused, no, I came to buy pepper, forget pepper first. Listen to this one. Mama Chidi would insist, eyes shining with excitement. By the time the story ended, the customer would walk away carrying 5 scandals and no pepper. And the worst part? Mama Chidi never told a story the way it was. If she saw a woman greet a man, by the time it passed through her mouth, it became, she is secretly meeting him at night. If 2 people stood too close, it turned into a full-blown affair with witnesses that never existed. Slowly, the villagers began to learn. When Mama Chidi approached, conversations would die suddenly like a blown-out lantern. People started speaking in coded language, confusing even themselves just to avoid her understanding. The goat has entered the farm, one would say, meaning something entirely different, while Mama Chidi stood nearby, squinting suspiciously. Even the children were not left out. Behind her back, they would mimic her dramatically, bending forward, wagging their fingers, shouting, Where are you going? Who offended you? Before bursting into uncontrollable laughter and scattering when she turned. Mama Chidi would hiss loudly, adjusting her wrapper, useless children. No home training. Yet deep down, the entire village knew one truth, where Mama Chidi was, peace was not. And where her words landed, trouble was never far behind. It began, as most of Mama Chidi's troubles did, with what she called a small talk and what the rest of the world would later call disaster. That afternoon, under the shade of a mango tree, she leaned close to her closest friend, Nkiru, her eyes dancing with mischief, her voice dropping into that familiar false whisper that carried farther than a shout. Nkiru, you are my friend, so I will tell you something, but you must not tell anyone, she said, glancing left and right dramatically. Nkiru nodded eagerly, You know I don't talk too much, tell me. Mama Chidi sighed deeply, placing the back of her hand on her forehead as though carrying the burden of a tragic story. This my husband, Obina, things are not as they used to be. Nkiru frowned, concerned. What do you mean? Mama Chidi leaned even closer, lowering her voice further. That man has become weak, very weak. In fact, if I don't close my eyes and imagine, I will just start crying. Nkiru gasped, covering her mouth. Chai. Are you serious? Mama Chidi shook her head slowly, enjoying every second of the performance. Serious? You don't know half of it. If I tell you everything, you will not even greet him again with a straight face. Both women burst into hushed laughter, Mama Chidi shaking her head as though she had just revealed the greatest secret in the village. But secrets, especially from Mama Chidi's mouth, never stayed buried. The very next day, the sun had barely risen when Papa Chidi, peaceful as ever, walked down the path, greeting passers-by with his usual calm dignity. "Good morning," he said gently, adjusting the cloth on his shoulder. Then suddenly, ha 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 ha. The laughter rang out loud and sharp, stopping in mid-step. It was Nkiru. She stood by the roadside, bent over, clutching her stomach, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. Papa Chidi blinked, confused. "Nkiru. What is it? Why are you laughing like this?" She tried to compose herself, wiping tears from her eyes, but the moment she looked at him again, another wave of laughter burst out. "Oh. Papa Chidi, I'm sorry. Oh, it's just, by now, a few people had begun to gather, curiosity pulling them closer." "What is happening?" someone asked. Papa Chidi's face tightened, his voice now uneasy. "Nkiru, tell me what is funny." She hesitated, but laughter and lack of control betrayed her. "Oh. It's your wife," she said. "She said you are not performing well again." The moment the words escaped her mouth, silence fell like a heavy stone. The crowd froze. Papa Chidi's expression changed instantly, the confusion in his eyes melting into something deeper: hurt, disbelief, humiliation. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The respect he carried like a crown slipped quietly from his head in that moment. Someone coughed awkwardly. Another person looked away. But the damage had already been done. Papa Chidi lowered his head slowly, his shoulders heavy, and without another word, he turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. That evening, the compound was unusually quiet. Mama Chidi was humming carelessly as she arranged her things when Papa Chidi entered. He did not greet her. He stood there, still, his presence alone enough to silence the air. "Did you tell Nkiru about me?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Mama Chidi paused, then scoffed lightly, waving her hand dismissively. What kind of question is that?" "Me? Tell Nkiru what?" Papa Chidi stepped closer, his eyes steady. "Do not lie to me, Chidi's mother. The whole road laughed at me today." Mama Chidi clicked her tongue, shaking her head dramatically. "Oh. People like to twist things. I only said something small, and she misunderstood it. You know how these people are." Papa Chidi's face hardened, the disappointment now clear. "Misunderstanding," he repeated slowly. "So it is misunderstanding that made her describe my private life in the middle of the road." Mama Chidi opened her mouth to defend herself again, but he raised his hand gently, stopping her. His voice dropped, quiet but heavy with warning. "One day, your mouth will destroy more than laughter." The words hung in the air long after he walked away. But even that did not stop the seed from growing where it should not. Little Emeka, who had been listening more than anyone realized, carried his mother's habits like a small shadow. The next day, while playing with other children, he puffed out his chest proudly and said, "Do you know that Okeke's father sleeps outside because his mother is always shouting at him?" The other children gasped. "Who told you that?" one asked. Emeka shrugged carelessly. "I hear things." Before long, the story reached the wrong ears, and trouble followed quickly. That evening, Papa Chidi called Emeka aside, his face stern. "Where did you hear such a thing?" Emeka shifted nervously, looking down. I just heard it." Papa Chidi's voice became firm, cutting through the boy's excuses. "Listen to me carefully. A man who carries words up and down like this carries shame. Do you understand? Emeka nodded slowly, fear creeping into his eyes, not just fear of his father, but fear of becoming something he was beginning to recognize. Mama Chidi, however, only laughed when she heard. "Oh, Obinna, leave the boy alone. Talking is not a crime," she said, waving her hand as though dismissing the weight of it all. But somewhere deep in that compound, a quiet truth settled. What Mama Chidi called talking was already becoming something far more dangerous, and it was only a matter of time before it demanded a price too heavy to laugh away. Slowly, quietly, like a pot of soup being removed from fire, the village began to withdraw from Mama Chidi. At first, she did not notice it. But then it became too obvious to ignore. Conversations that were once loud and lively would suddenly die the moment she appeared, like a flute whose player had forgotten the tune. Two women would be talking, laughing freely, and then, "Oh, Mama Chidi is coming." Silence. Awkward smiles. Forced greetings. "Good afternoon." "Well done." Nothing more. Mama Chidi would stand there, eyes moving from one face to another, waiting, expecting, but nothing came. No gist. No secrets. No careless words to pick and reshape. Just dry air. She would hiss loudly, placing her hands on her waist. These people think they are wise. They are just jealous of me, that's all. And the irony. The same Mama Chidi, who complained bitterly about people hiding things from her, would immediately turn to the next person she found and begin, "Do you know these people have started acting somehow? Nobody wants to talk again. I wonder what they are hiding." The listener would nod carefully, choosing their words like someone walking on thorns. Maybe they are just busy. But Mama Chidi would lean closer, lowering her voice, "Biziko. Something is going on, I know it. This village is full of secrets." And so, even in complaining about being avoided, she was still gossiping, still stirring, still searching for something that would give her some purpose. Soon, it became almost a game in the village. The moment Mama Chidi's figure appeared at the far end of a path, someone would whisper urgently, "She's coming," and like scattered birds, people would adjust quickly. One man would suddenly remember he had forgotten something inside his house and disappear. Two women fetching water would bend their heads and begin discussing something meaningless like the weather. Children would giggle and run, some even hiding behind walls, peeking out and whispering, "Is she gone?" The women became experts in silent communication. A raised eyebrow. A slight tilt of the head. A quick flick of the hand. It all meant one thing: danger is near. Mama Chidi is coming. And Mama Chidi saw all of this. Oh yes, she saw it clearly, but instead of reflecting, she grew louder in her complaints. Let them continue. One day, they will still come and meet me for information, she would declare proudly, adjusting her wrapper with exaggerated confidence, even though deep down, something was beginning to feel empty. Until only one person remained who still spoke to her freely, Nkiru. Nkiru, her old friend, her last doorway into the world of secrets. That evening, the sun was soft, casting long shadows across the compound as Nkiru sat beside her, her face unusually heavy, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper nervously. Mama Chidi noticed immediately, her eyes lighting up, not with concern, but with curiosity carefully disguised as sympathy. Nkiru, what is it? Your face is not carrying good news. Talk to me. Nkiru hesitated, looking around as though the air itself might betray her. Her voice dropped, trembling slightly, "Mama Chidi. I don't even know where to start." Mama Chidi quickly moved closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, her voice softening into that familiar tone of false comfort. "Start anywhere. I am here. You know I am your friend." Nkiru swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. I think my husband is seeing someone else." Mama Chidi gasped loudly, then quickly covered her mouth, lowering her voice again. What are you saying? Are you sure?" Nkiru nodded slowly, pain written all over her face. I have been hearing things, people are talking, they say it is someone who lives near the chief's house. Mama Chidi leaned in even closer, her eyes wide with interest. Near the chief's house. Nkiru nodded again. I don't know who exactly, but I am afraid. I don't know what to do. There was a brief silence, heavy and raw, before Mama Chidi squeezed her hand dramatically, shaking her head with exaggerated seriousness. Nkiru, listen to me. You have done well to tell me. I am your friend, and I will stand by you. This kind of thing requires wisdom. Nkiru looked at her, searching for reassurance. Please, don't tell anyone. I am not ready for people to start talking. Mama Chidi straightened, placing her hand on her chest as though taking an oath before the gods. Me? Tell anyone. Tufiokwa. May my tongue dry up if I ever betray you. This is between you and me. Nkiru exhaled deeply, relief washing over her face, unaware that she had just placed her most fragile secret into the most dangerous mouth in the entire village. And as Mama Chidi nodded solemnly, pretending to share in her friend's pain, something else flickered quietly in her eyes, not compassion, but the excitement of a story waiting to be told. The next day, the market woke up like any other, loud, colorful, restless, but Mama Chidi had already arrived with something hotter than pepper and more dangerous than fire. She sat at her store, arranging her goods with unnecessary energy, her eyes scanning for the right audience, her lips itching to release what she had promised to keep. It started accidentally, as it always did. This life sure, she sighed loudly, making sure the women beside her heard. One of them leaned closer, curiosity already pulling her in. What is it again, Mama Chidi? Mama Chidi shook her head slowly, pretending reluctance. I don't even want to talk, some things are too heavy. Another woman joined. Oh. Now you must talk. Don't start what you cannot finish. Mama Chidi glanced around, then leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make everyone strain to hear. You people did not hear it from me, but what is happening in Kiru's house is not small. The name alone was enough. Heads turned. Ears opened. What happened? Someone whispered. Mama Chidi clicked her tongue dramatically. That's her husband. He is not just moving around carelessly, the matter has reached the chief's compound. The women gasped. Chief's compound? How? Mama Chidi shook her head again, now fully immersed in the performance. Not just near it is the chief's wife. That is who he is following. The words dropped like a stone in water, sending ripples of shock through the crowd. May the gods forbid. Mama Chidi, what are you saying? God forbid. Are you sure? But Mama Chidi only folded her arms proudly. Do I ever talk what I don't know? The market exploded into noise, whispers turning into loud discussions, people rushing to carry the news, voices rising, emotions clashing. This is serious. The chief must hear this. Nkiru's husband. With the chief's wife. The rumor grew legs instantly, running faster than anyone could catch it, spreading from store to store, from ear to ear, until it no longer sounded like a story, it sounded like truth. And then, as if drawn by the very chaos her secret had created, Nkiru arrived. She walked into the market with her usual calm, but something felt wrong. People were looking at her differently. Whispering. Pointing subtly. She slowed down, her heart tightening. Why are they looking at me like this? She murmured. As she passed a group of women, she heard it clearly, like a slap. That's her, the one whose husband is sleeping with the chief's wife. Nkiru stopped. The world around her blurred. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as confusion turned to shock, and shock burned into anger. Without thinking, she turned and marched straight to Mama Chidi's stall. But what she met there made her blood boil even more. Mama Chidi was laughing, leaning toward another woman, already deep into another story, her hands moving animatedly. I told you, that woman is pretending. She is not as innocent as she looks. Nkiru stood there, frozen for a moment, staring at her. The same mouth that had promised secrecy was now busy destroying someone else again, as if nothing had happened. Mama Chidi, she called, her voice trembling with controlled rage. Mama Chidi turned casually, smiling as if nothing was wrong. Oh, Nkiru. You are here. Nkiru opened her mouth to speak, to shout, to expose everything right there in the market, but the words caught in her throat. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, her fist clenched tightly, but instead of exploding, she swallowed it. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her steps heavy, her silence louder than any insult. But the storm had already reached her home before she did. The moment she entered, her husband was waiting, his face dark with anger. Nkiru, he shouted, his voice shaking the walls. Is it true? Have you started carrying our family matters outside? Nkiru's heart dropped. What are you talking about? She asked weakly. Don't pretend, he snapped. The whole village is talking. They are saying I am sleeping with the chief's wife. How did this madness start? Tears filled Nkiru's eyes instantly. I did not say that. I only told. She stopped, the realization hitting her like thunder. Mama Chidi. You told who? Her husband pressed, stepping closer. You see. You cannot even defend yourself. Nkiru fell to her knees, crying, I only told Mama Chidi that I suspected something. I didn't say anything about the chief's wife. I swear. But the damage was already done. Trust cracked in that moment, fragile and painful. Her husband turned away, running his hands through his hair in frustration. You have brought shame into this house, he said quietly. And outside, the fire continued to spread. The rumor reached the chief's palace like a storm breaking through the gates. The household erupted instantly. Voices raised. Accusations flew. The chief's wife stood in the center, confused, hurt, humiliated. What is this nonsense I am hearing? She cried. Who is saying this? The chief's face was hard with anger, his authority shaking under the weight of the scandal. Explain yourself, he demanded. I have done nothing, she insisted, tears streaming down her face. It was chaos, pure, destructive chaos born from one careless mouth. And then, Nkiru stepped in. Despite her own pain, despite the shame burning her skin, she spoke up, her voice steady with determination. Chief, please listen to me. Your wife is innocent. This rumor is a lie. The room fell silent. How do you know? The chief asked sharply. Nkiru swallowed, gathering courage. Because it came from me, but it was twisted. I only said I suspected my husband was seeing someone near your house. I never mentioned your wife. Mama Chidi changed it. A heavy silence followed her words. Slowly, the truth settled, calming the storm just enough to prevent total destruction. The chief's wife broke down in tears, relief mixing with pain, while the chief exhaled deeply, his anger now redirected. The damage had been done, but at least the truth had been restored. Back in the village, fingers began to point, this time not at Nkiru, but at Mama Chidi. It is her again. That woman will not rest. Her mouth will finish this village one day. Yet, even with all the blame falling on her, Mama Chidi refused to carry it fully. She shrugged, clicking her tongue dismissively. People like to exaggerate things. I only said what I heard. How did it become my fault? And just like that, even after shaking homes, breaking trust, and nearly destroying a household, Mama Chidi stood there, still defending the very mouth that was slowly digging her own grave. The day of the elderly woman's funeral arrived wrapped in silence, the kind that sat heavily on the chest and refused to move. No loud laughter, no careless chatter, only the soft murmur of grief and the distant sound of mourning voices rising and falling like a broken song. Women sat in clusters, heads covered, eyes red from crying, while men stood quietly, their faces tight with respect for the departed. The air itself seemed to bow in sorrow. At the center lay the old woman, dressed carefully, her body prepared for the journey beyond, surrounded by family members whose tears refused to dry. And then, quietly but unmistakably, Mama Chidi arrived. She did not sit still. Her eyes moved from one corner to another, scanning, observing, searching, not for comfort, not for sympathy, but for something to carry away. She leaned toward the woman beside her, her lips already trembling with the urge to speak, and then she whispered, "Did you see how they dressed her?" The woman turned sharply, eyes wide with warning. "Mama Chidi. This is not the place, be quiet." But Mama Chidi only adjusted her wrapper and shook her head slowly, her voice dripping with false concern. "I am only saying, is this how to send someone to the spirit world? This one is not complete." Oh. The woman hissed softly, turning away, but the words had already escaped. And like dry leaves in harmattan wind, they did not stay where they were spoken. By the next morning, the whisper had grown into something far darker. In corners of the village, people began to murmur, "They did not prepare her well, I heard her spirit may not rest, she might come back." Fear crept into conversations, slipping into homes, settling in hearts. The grieving family heard it, and their sorrow deepened into something unbearable. The wailing grew louder, more desperate. "Why would they say such a thing?" one of the daughters cried, beating her chest. "Have we not suffered enough?" Neighbors gathered, trying to console them, but the damage had already taken root. Eyes darted nervously at night. Doors were shut earlier than usual. Even children whispered about spirits returning. And when the villagers traced the origin of the rumor, all fingers pointed in one direction. "It is Mama Chidi again. That woman has no fear. Even the dead cannot rest because of her mouth." Yet when confronted, Mama Chidi stood firm, folding her arms defensively. "Oh, why is everybody looking at me? Did I say anything wrong? I only asked a simple question. People are the ones adding things." She shook her head, clicking her tongue, refusing to carry the weight of what she had caused. But her mouth had not yet finished its work. No, it was only growing bolder. Soon, her whispers climbed higher, reaching places they had no right to reach. In the market, with fewer people willing to stand close to her, she began again, her voice low but dangerous. "This kingdom, things are not as they seem." The man nearby frowned, uneasy. "Mama Chidi, be careful what you say." But she leaned closer, her eyes glinting with reckless confidence. "Our king is not as clean as you people think. Do you know how much money passes through his hands? Where do you think it goes?" The man stiffened. "Mama Chidi," she continued, unstoppable now. "He is hiding wealth. Building things elsewhere. In fact, I heard he even has another family, a young woman, hidden somewhere far from here." This time, there was no laughter. No excited whispers. Only silence, thick, heavy, dangerous. People stepped back slowly, as if distance could protect them from the words they had just heard. One woman shook her head quickly, whispering, "Do not involve me in this." Another man walked away without a word. Fear replaced curiosity. And then, it happened. The sound of footsteps, firm, synchronized, unmistakable. Royal guards. The entire village fell silent as they entered, their presence cutting through the air like a blade. Mama Chidi's heart skipped. For the first time, her confidence trembled. "Mama Chidi," one of them called, his voice cold, "the king summons you." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The same lips that never rested suddenly felt heavy. I didn't do anything," she stammered weakly. But the guards did not argue. They stepped forward, gripping her family. As they dragged her away, the villagers watched in silence, no one speaking, no one defending her. The road that once echoed with her voice now echoed with her fear. At the palace, she was thrown before the king, her body trembling, her wrapper loosened, her pride already shattered. The king sat still, his face unreadable, his silence more terrifying than any shout. Mama Chidi crawled forward, tears streaming down her face. "My king. Please. I beg you, I did not mean it. People twisted my words," she cried, her voice shaking. The king said nothing at first. He simply watched her, letting her own fear consume her. Then, slowly, he spoke, his voice calm, but heavy with authority. "Your mouth has caused pain in this land. You have broken homes, spread fear, and now, you dare speak against the throne." Mama Chidi fell flat to the ground, sobbing. "Forgive me, my king. It will never happen again." The king's eyes did not soften. "You will not learn by words," he said quietly. "You will learn by shame." He paused, then continued, each word landing like a hammer. "You will go to every house in this village. Every stall in the market. You will kneel before them. You will beg loudly. You will confess what you have done." Mama Chidi gasped, her body shaking. "My king, you will include your own house," he added firmly. "And the palace will be the last place you come to apologize." The room was silent except for her sobs. "If you miss even one house," the king continued, his voice dropping lower, "your punishment will be worse." Mama Chidi's strength left her completely. She lay there, broken, her tears soaking the ground beneath her. For the first time in her life, her mouth had finally led her somewhere she could not talk her way out of. At first, Mama Chidi stood outside the first compound, her feet heavy, her pride fighting desperately against the shame rising in her chest. "Must I really do this?" she muttered under her breath, her voice trembling. But the memory of the king's cold eyes pushed her forward. Slowly, she knocked. The door opened, and the woman inside froze, eyes widening in disbelief. Without lifting her head, Mama Chidi dropped to her knees. I have come to beg," she said, her voice barely steady. "I have wronged you with my mouth. I promise I will never gossip about you again. If I do, report me to the king, let him banish me." The woman folded her arms. "Louder," she said sharply. Mama Chidi swallowed hard. "Please. I beg you," she repeated, this time louder, her voice cracking. In some houses, the doors were slammed in her face before she could even finish. In others, people stood over her, shaking their heads. "Repeat it again," they would say. "We did not hear you well." And she would repeat it again and again, her knees aching, her voice breaking. Some mocked her openly. "Is this not the same Mama Chidi that said my husband was useless?" One woman laughed loudly. "Add it to your apology." Another man smirked, "Tell us how you said I was stealing goats." And she would nod, tears streaming, "Yes. I said it. I am sorry. I will never do it again." By the time she reached the market, her humiliation had grown wings. Traders from other villages gathered, whispering and laughing openly. "Is this the famous gossip?" one of them asked, amused. Mama Chidi knelt in the dust, her wrapper stained, her voice hoarse. "I beg you all, forgive me." Children followed her in a noisy trail, clapping and chanting mockingly, "Mama Chidi the gossip. Mama Chidi the gossip." She tried to speak, but her lines tangled in her head. I will not. I mean, start again," someone shouted. Laughter erupted. She closed her eyes briefly, then began again, slower this time, forcing each word out like a punishment she could not escape. Some people even exaggerated her past lies just to deepen her shame. "Tell them how you said I had 3 husbands. Say it properly. And she did. Every word. Every lie. Every shame. But nothing prepared her for the moment she reached her own house. She stood there for a long time, staring at the door, her body trembling. Then slowly, she entered. Papa Chidi sat quietly, his face unreadable. Chidi stood by the wall, his eyes lowered. Emeka clung to the corner, confused and ashamed. Without a word, Mama Chidi fell to her knees before them. Her voice broke instantly. Obina, my children. I have brought shame to this family. I have used my mouth to destroy our peace. Please, forgive me. Papa Chidi said nothing. His silence was heavier than any insult. The children could not even look at her. And in that moment, something inside Mama Chidi shattered completely. She bent forward, her forehead touching the ground, her body shaking with deep, uncontrollable sobs. By the time she reached the palace, the entire village had gathered. The king sat in silence as she was brought forward, weak, exhausted, and stripped of every ounce of pride she once carried. The king looked at the crowd. Did she come to your houses? He asked. A loud chorus rose, yes. Did she apologize properly? Yes. Mama Chidi crawled forward slowly and knelt before the king, her head bowed low. This time, there was no excuse, no defense, no pride. Only truth. My king. I have sinned with my mouth. I have caused pain, shame, and fear. I beg for your forgiveness. The king studied her briefly, then gave a slight nod. From that day, Mama Chidi became a different woman. She walked quietly, her head always lowered. In the market, when people saw her, laughter would erupt behind her back, whispers trailing her like shadows. But she no longer turned. She no longer responded. She simply walked on. And whenever the urge to speak rose within her, when her lips began to part out of habit, she would quickly press them together, holding the words in, as if afraid they might destroy her all over again. That night, when the noise of the village had settled and even the crickets seemed to whisper more softly, Mama Chidi sat quietly in her compound, her head bowed, her hands trembling slightly as if they still carried the weight of her shame. The air was heavy, but this time, it was not filled with gossip, it was filled with truth she could no longer run from. Slowly, she stood and walked toward her husband, Papa Chidi, who sat silently as usual, his presence calm but distant. She knelt before him without hesitation, her voice low and sincere. Obina, I have wronged you more than words can explain. I took your dignity and threw it into the open for people to laugh at. I am ashamed, deeply ashamed. Please, forgive me. Papa Chidi did not respond immediately. He watched her quietly, studying the woman before him, the same woman who once laughed carelessly, now broken by her own actions. He sighed softly, his voice calm but firm. What you did wounded me, but what pains me more is that you did not see it until it was too late. Mama Chidi lowered her head further, tears slipping down her cheeks. I see it now, she whispered. After a long silence, Papa Chidi nodded slowly. Stand up. Let your change speak louder than your apology. She turned to her children next, her heart heavier than before. Chidi stood still, his face serious, while Emeka avoided her gaze. She knelt again, her voice trembling. My children. I have taught you the wrong things. Instead of guiding you, I showed you how to destroy with words. Forgive me. Emeka finally looked at her, his young face filled with understanding beyond his years. Mama. I don't want to be like that, he said quietly. I don't want people to run away when I come. His words pierced deeper than any punishment. Mama Chidi nodded, her voice breaking. And you will not be. You will be better than me. From that day, Papa Chidi began, little by little, to forgive, not through words, but through quiet acceptance. Emeka changed too, holding his tongue where he once would have spoken, remembering his father's warning and his mother's fall. And across the village, something shifted. The careless laughter that once followed gossip began to fade. People spoke more carefully, weighing their words before releasing them. The fear of shame, of kneeling from house to house, settled into their hearts like a lasting lesson. And Mama Chidi, she became more than just a woman. She became a warning. A living lesson. Whenever her name was mentioned, it was no longer with excitement, but with caution. Parents pointed her out to their children. Do you see her? Guard your mouth, or you will learn the hard way. And so, our story remained echoing quietly in the hearts of all who heard it. Because words can destroy faster than fire. Gossip may begin as laughter, light and harmless, but it often ends in tears too heavy to carry. A careless tongue can tear down dignity, scatter families, and steal peace from even the strongest homes. But silence, when chosen wisely, is not weakness. It is wisdom. Guard your tongue, for it holds the power to build or destroy. A single careless word can travel farther than you ever will, leaving wounds you may never see. Not everything you hear should be spoken, and not everything you know should be shared. Speak less, listen more, and remember, silence is often the wisdom that saves you from regret.